Hey guys, what's up? This is your friendly neighborhood UberGoose here. I want to talk to you guys today about artifacts. Specifically, we're going to be just analyzing a game that was played on the second day of the Artifact PAX stream on Steam TV. I'm not watching the stream on Steam TV because I don't know how to find the VODs there, but hey, this Ninja Boffin guy uploaded the full VODs, I think for both days 1 and 2 of the live stream. So I'm watching that. There will be a link in the description. It's starting around 1850 for this one. This is Lincc versus Luminous, and I'm going to try my best to actually analyze this as if you actually know what's going on with Artifact. So if you don't, there will be a link in the description as well to a video by Ars Technica called How to Play Artifact, which I haven't watched the whole thing because it kind of just covers, stuff that I personally already know. But you can check it out if you are interested and have no idea what's going on. So first things first, let's look at the way that it was, distributed, the stuff at the start. We got Bristleback against Pugna, Keith against Lincc, and Luna against Axe. The challenger Lincc is playing the blue-red control, and then Luminous is playing the red-green cleave. As far as the first lane is concerned, left lane, it's pretty simple. Both players are going to get a creep kill. It is worth noting, though, that new orders could actually just be played and tell Bristleback to attack the Pugna, and honestly, that's probably a really good idea, as that does give more gold to the challenger, because the Pugna will end up dying. It takes the Pugna out of commission for 2 turns, and also Bristleback will begin to start, he'll start stacking up armor in the process. Obviously, there's a potential downside in the event that Luminous has some red card to play there, but, in the event he doesn't, then cool. And even if Lumi did have a red card to play, New Orders is a pretty low commitment. It costs 1 mana. It's a single card. Pretty reasonable, and he even still has Ventriloquy if he needs to redirect attacks on future turns. So it's not a big deal. We see a Rebel Decoy coming down. Interesting. I'm wondering if that's going to swap with Lincc or if it's literally just... Okay, it's just feeding. Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about that one. Rebel Decoy seems like it's really powerful to me if you're actually using it properly, but I feel like spending mana and a card just to save 6 life on mid tower is questionable. But it is worth noting that the way that they were doing these games is that the player who, was in the Artifact closed beta and actually has played the game a bunch, they have a disadvantage. They start with 30 health on the towers rather than 40, which is what the number is going to be for everybody once the game actually comes out. So it's possible that preventing 6 damage to your 30 health tower is actually going to be a lot more relevant than I personally think. Interesting. So TP Scroll and Leather Armor are picked up for the Challenger and Traveler's Cloak for Lumi. I will say on the Spectator client, pretty much everything looks great to me, except the fact that you can't see the top player's item shop. I think that there could be a way to actually pop up both boxes, both item shops, very clearly, but it's fine. So you see Farvin coming down on the left. Zeus is... where would Zeus go? He's probably going left. I don't really think Zeus going to mid for the reasonably high chance of getting in front of Lincc, or going right for a similarly high chance, in fact, maybe even higher, to get in front of Axe. Now that I'm thinking about it, hang on. This creep is going to go... Well, if you deploy Zeus here, then there will be 3 spots. Zeus can go in 2 of the spots. Yeah, I guess it's a 50-50 either way for Zeus to go in front of Lincc or in front of Axe. If you go left, you're not even guaranteed. He might not even be deploying Farvin there. Also, Zeus would probably prefer to be across from Farvin than anybody else because Farvin has the passive ability to give armor to nearby allied neighbors, and Zeus does piercing damage with his passive, so that would be a situation, I think, where you'd actually be happy having Zeus over there. Here he has a 50-50 shot of just dying, so I don't really know how I feel about that. I guess if Zeus does end up in front of the Axe, which he did, you could play Ventriloquy on Luna, so the Axe kills Luna instead, but either way you're losing a hero, so I don't think that was a very good play. Okay. On lane 1, it seems as if Farvin is as far away from Bristleback as possible. Bristleback is very clearly going to kill this creep. I don't think you should play anything in this instance unless you're intending to suit up the Bristleback even further and play the leather armor on this turn. I don't think initiative is going to be super important at this point. The most important spell you could be playing is Ventriloquy, and having initiative to play Ventriloquy doesn't sound very good. Town Portal Scroll. Interesting. That's an interesting play. So now he's basically ditching left lane completely after getting armor on Bristleback. That's a very interesting idea. I wonder where Bristle's going to go. Maybe on right lane, actually. I don't think you do anything here. Again, you might want a leather armor. I think playing leather armor on this turn is probably pretty reasonable because initiative is not super relevant on this run-through. So using your initiative to actually get leather armor up on Keith the Bold if you are trying to make him beefier, or maybe even get it on Zeus to try and prevent him from dying. That sort of thing could totally happen. Obviously, we know, seeing the hands, there's a Poise to Strike, which gives +4 attack to a red hero for the turn. So if leather armor goes on Zeus, then Poise to Strike will come out and likely just kill the Zeus anyway. So, yeah, there's the leather armor, there's the Poise to Strike. Nothing really shocking here. Pretty much just Zeus dying. Axe takes 1 in the process, which is really unfortunate for the challenger. Now, he could, like I said, he could run out Ventriloquy to save Zeus specifically and lose Luna instead. And that seems very questionable to me because I think Luna being on the board longer makes the most sense to try and get her Eclipse to be stronger, right? Every turn she spends on the board, she does a Lucent Beam, and every Lucent Beam improves the power of the Eclipse, whenever you draw it, right? Or all 3 Eclipses, I guess. So Bristle coming down mid, probably Earthshaker to the left lane. Now, I think... I guess with 2 creeps coming out left, maybe it makes a bit more sense, but there are also 2 heroes coming out for Lumi. So there was a reasonable chance that at least one of those 2 heroes will also go into left lane. And you already kind of abandon it by portaling out the Bristleback, so I don't really think putting Earthshaker there makes the most sense unless you are intending to Conflagration. Jesus, Slacks ruined me. It's Conflagration, but for some reason, Slacks has murdered me. And he kept saying conflagration, and it ruined the way that I perceived the card. But there goes the conflagration or the conflagration down in the right lane, which makes sense. I think that's pretty much the only reason you'd put Earthshaker in this lane is if you're intending to play specifically conflagration on a later lane, and that is exactly what he did. So that makes a bit of sense. The thing is, initiative is currently held by Lumi. Honestly, yeah, that actually is probably fine. Run out the Rebel Decoy. Unfortunately, we see Lycan hitting the Bristleback. I think that's probably not what Lumi wanted. It doesn't necessarily hurt, but it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really do anything. Stonehall Plate coming down as well as Traveler's Cloak. He's really trying to make sure this Pugna is a real strong boy. So, nothing too out of the ordinary yet. Conflagration coming out, killing one of the creeps and getting the other guaranteed dead to Luna. 2 damage is going to go through to the tower. Yeah, no reason to play Ventriloquy at all. It's not going to change anything. Pretty simple turn there for both players. Initiative is currently held by the challenger, though, going into the 6 mana turn, so Eclipse could be played. But Berserker's Call can also be played. Ogre Conscript can be played. Obviously, I favor Lumi's side a lot more right now because Ogre Conscript is like he's a beefy boy, right? He's like a 626 or 616, something like that. I think it's a 6/6 with some amount of armor, right? Something like that. Zeus coming down in mid. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. Because if Zeus goes in front of Pugna, Zeus will die. Okay, luckily, did not go in front of Pugna. So the idea was that you might want to, I guess, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Because you really want to have initiative on the Echo Slam turn and have a blue hero in the lane you want to Echo Slam on the turn that you get, the 7th mana. So I'm not so certain about this whole situation. It seems a little bit wonky. I don't think you run out of clips here, though. It doesn't really do anything. 4 charges is not nearly enough to do anything of note in this lane. Healing Salve on Earthshaker. Okay, so it looks like he wants to Echo Slam, and that honestly, that makes a lot of sense. Town Portal Scroll to pull Farvin back. Pretty smart, I think, because I think the moment that the Healing Salve comes down on Earthshaker, you have to assume that there's a plan, you know? Like, there's something going on. So there's the Eclipse. Pretty much got exactly as expected. Just one on each, it looked like. And, of course, Zeus's passive, doing a bit more piercing damage. Now Lycan's actually looking dead, which is very unfortunate for him. Berserker's Call could come down, and there it is. So that kills the Zeus. It's interesting how Berserker's Call works specifically. It basically, if you don't know what battle means in this game, it's literally just fight. From Magic the Gathering, it's the fight keyword, but Berserker's Call allows basically a 1 versus 3 fight. But the thing is that you don't have to split the damage up at all. So you could use like a hero that has 1 health and high attack and just kill 3 opposing units. And that's more or less what was being done here, right? Pugna obviously survived the battle because he has 2 armor. So the creep is going to do 0, and Zeus is only going to do 1, and Pugna is going to do 7 to Zeus because the 1 armor and the 8 attack. So this battle actually is not sacrificing a low health hero. Instead, it's literally just you get a hero off the board and gain 6 gold, right? And that's a pretty big deal. It is potentially a problem, though, that the tower took 10 on that turn. So now this tower is at 20 health, which 20 health feels like not a whole lot. I think one thing that's interesting about the way that this game went down at PAX, the way that Artifact went down at PAX because of this handicap, it felt like the game went a bit faster than it relatively should. Like most of the time, I think games are going to be a lot longer than what we saw at PAX because, one, the decks at PAX were pre-constructed, and pre-constructed decks tend to be pretty far from the best decks. So I anticipate that a more control-y deck that, somebody theory crafts in the first week or so is probably going to be a lot better than this blue-red control deck at PAX. That's just an assumption because we don't know most of the cards, but I think it's a reasonable one. And on top of that, just the fact that 30 health versus 40 changes the game a lot, right? I would expect if they went from 40 to 50, the game would get a lot slower. Right? Even though 10 doesn't sound like a big number, it ends up being pretty dramatic. So most of these games went relatively quick compared to, I think, what we should expect once the game actually comes out. So this is actually a cool situation where the challenger has initiative, and they could play Eclipse. And the thing about Eclipse, 7-2-7, right? Ogre Conscript's way better than I thought. They could have played Eclipse, and honestly, they should have, because to some degree, you should go, okay, maybe I should hold on to the second Eclipse because Luna's still on the board, and maybe my second Eclipse can get better, and, I might not even draw the third Eclipse. But I think playing Eclipse, because it's 4 charges, and it's 3 piercing, so it'll kill X in 3 hits, right? And he's the only target. So it basically is, perfectly set up to kill X, and that leaves Luna on the board even longer, to potentially get more Lucent Beams. Now, if no creeps or heroes are then deployed to this lane, she actually won't increment Lucent Beam on the following turn, but that also does mean that the tower will take even more damage. It would have taken 5 on this turn, potentially more than 5 on the following turn. You get the idea. But instead, he decided to just pass, and we saw the Ogre Conscripts come down, which now is threatening Luna. Mechanically, the way that it works, by the way, when you deploy a unit mid-combat, if you're deploying it in the current lane that you're in, you choose specifically where it's placed. However, if there's an open gap on your side, in the case there were 2 open slots when this was being played, it has to go in one of those 2, so he could have chosen to put it in front of the creep or in front of Luna. He made the obvious choice. But if your board is equal, right, and there are no gaps on your side, then you get to choose which of the 2 outside slots to place the creep. If the creep is being summoned from an item or summoned in a different lane, I think, then the positioning is random. But in this case, you have a lot of choice in this specific example, and of course he made the correct choice. Now Cunning Plan is going to come out and swap the Luna, so the Luna is not going to die to the Ogre Conscripts, which, again, this is kind of punishment for not playing Eclipse. Right now, if he played Eclipse, he wouldn't have had initiative on the first lane, and it's possible that he wants initiative on the first lane for Echo Slam purposes, but now, because he's played Cunning Plan, he actually doesn't have initiative anyway, because obviously Lumi is not gonna, Lumi is just gonna pass in that instance. And obviously, because we can see the hands, we know Berserker's Call is likely to come out on Legion Commander, killing the Earthshaker in the process, and stopping the potential Echo Slam on left lane, and basically just guaranteeing that the left lane is incredibly dead for Challenger, for our boy Lincc, which is obviously unfortunate. As far as the items to buy, yeah, Town Portal Scroll seems like it makes a lot of sense to me. There is a creep coming down on the left lane. Unfortunately, the current hero being deployed for Lincc is Keef, and he is not blue. So if he puts Keef down in left lane, as long as Earthshaker dies, there will be no Echo Slam coming out, which sucks. And what makes it even worse is that if Earthshaker dies before being able to play anything, the only spot that you can even play a blue spell on this turn is in right lane. Now, it could be you could play the Thunder God's Wrath in right lane, which would be pretty decent. It does 4 piercing, and it would kill, as we currently see it, it would kill Lycan, Pugna, and would it kill anybody on far right? I'm not sure. So yeah, there's the Berserker's Call, kills the Earthshaker. Now no blue cards can be played right now. Now here's actually an interesting junction. Red Mist Pillager could actually be played across from Legion Commander. And that sounds stupid if you know what Red Mist Pillager does. If it hits a tower, it'll create a copy. But because there's only 1 mana left, it's incredibly likely that this fight will happen, and Red Mist Pillager will get 3 damage through on Legion Commander, bringing her down to 3 life. If you at this point prioritize having priority, having initiative, going into right lane, then you can play Thunder God's Wrath as the first card, killing Legion, killing Lycan, killing Pugna. So that's a triple kill, getting 3 heroes off the board at the exact same time and getting a huge boost to your gold. All at the cost of 1 card and feeding 1 gold to your opponent. And that seems like a pretty reasonable idea. You can't save the tower at this point, so you could either do the Red Mist Pillager play or Town Portal Scroll, or you could just pass and guarantee that you have initiative going into right lane. So there's the Town Portal Scroll on Keef. I don't really like that, to be honest, but it is one of the potential plays. Now, one of the arguments to not playing Red Mist Pillager on left lane is the fact that if you do that line, then the Legion Commander dies. And Legion Commander dying is good for you right now, but potentially good for your opponent in the long run, because that means the Legion Commander could be deployed to a different lane. Now, if Lumi is not going to try and kill the Ancient in left lane, then stranding Legion Commander in left lane is a pretty good idea. Now, there are ways to get Legion out of there, including a Town Portal Scroll or a Blink Dagger. However, currently, neither of those is happening. So, it does, to some degree, make a bit of sense to actually just not go for that play that kills Legion Commander at all. But, Ogre Conscript's coming down. Not really going to do much against Bristleback, actually. I hope he doesn't play Red Mist Pillager, because now he will have initiative going into right lane, and he'll be able to Thunder God's Wrath right away, which I think is really important. It'll get a double kill, it'll clean up mid lane. Bristleback, taking 7 here, kind of sucks, but it's not really that bad. Bristleback goes down to 3 health in that instance, but there are ways to fix that on a future turn, like Time of Triumph on the following turn, because you'll have 8 mana. So I think at this point you just pass. Yeah. Nope, that's not a pass. That's the Red Mist Pillager. Yeah, I don't know about that. Because now, Lumi has initiative going into this final lane. Thunder God's Wrath is theoretically much worse than it was previously, because it won't actually kill the Lycan. Divine Purpose comes out on Farvin. So now Farvin can't die to damage, which means I think the blue-red deck literally has no way to deal with Divine Purpose at all. Eclipse actually wouldn't be a bad idea. I don't think it would be a good idea. but I don't think it would be the worst idea. You need, so it has 6 on average. Yeah, so if he's playing the Thunder God's Wrath anyway, he obviously shouldn't have played the Red Mist Pillager on left lane. Unfortunately, you know, got punished for that mistake, and it's not looking too good for the challenger here. In fact, it's looking quite bad for the challenger. Furline Mantle seems like a good pickup. Healing Salve is probably reasonable as well. And I don't think this game is going to go too many more turns, so that seems totally reasonable to me. Meanwhile, Lumi is just picking up a ton of items. So now Zeus is going down in left lane. Keef probably in mid lane, if I had to guess. Keef is going down in right lane. Oh yeah, you can't ditch right lane. Duh. You literally, like, if you ditch right lane, you just lose the game. So that obviously makes sense. Maybe Zeus should have gone down in right lane, because there were 2 enemy creeps that you knew were going down in that lane, so I don't know. He might go for the Echo Slam here, but then he doesn't have an Echo Slam on right lane. He did go for it. So that does fully clear this lane and potentially give him the opportunity to kill this tower at some point. So I guess it did make sense. Right now it looks like Bristleback is going to die, but I would just slam a Time of Triumph here, I think, unless... Well, no, you have items that you could play on Bristleback. And Initiative might be relevant in right lane. Maybe? Not sure. I still think Time of Triumph is reasonable here. You have 2 of them. You have 8 mana. So play 1 now, and then play 1 on right lane to beef up Keef as well. Yeah, Fountain Flask comes out. No, that would have been a perfect time to Time of Triumph. So if he Time of Triumphed, then this tower would have 4 less life. Bristleback would have 9 life still, I think. The creep in this lane would be dead, but I guess he wouldn't have initiative in right lane. But I'm not sure how relevant that is. Quite fortunate, though, that the conscript in right lane is hitting Keef rather than the structure. So there is Time of Triumph. Now Keef is a real beefy boy. Not even dying to this attack, despite getting hit by two 7 attack dudes. Keef is a big boy. Oh yeah, it gives +4 health, doesn't it? So actually Bristle would have even more health than I thought. He would have 13, I think. Yeah, Blink Dagger probably. Almost definitely Blink Dagger. And maybe Healing Salve as well. There's the Blink. No Healing Salve. Interesting. Now 2 blue heroes can come down. Challenger does have initiative. So that does potentially open the door to playing a Thunder God's Wrath or an Eclipse relatively early. The trouble is, again, you got these two heroes on the right lane that are just unkillable. So he is committing the heroes to the right lane. But now mid lane looks like it's in trouble. It's not dead right now, but it could very well die on this turn. Duel, that's a huge pickup. New Orders is potentially quite good as well. It's not as good as Ventriloquy, but fortunately he could play both on right lane. So that is quite fortunate. Yeah, this is a very rough situation. Lumi basically just put up the fucking wall, right? He took down the first tower and then just put up that wall. And now he's just living behind it. And I think it's going to be really hard for the challenger to win here. His mid tower is now threatened more than the right lane. Ooh, a second. Okay, so a second conflagration means that there are no melee creeps that will have any chance of surviving on right lane, right? Every single time that they spawn, they'll just instantly die. Now, unfortunately, it is 2 different instances, so it won't do anything to a unit that, say, has 3 armor. It'll do no damage to that unit rather than the 1 you might expect from, dealing 4 damage. We see a duel come out, so Zeus is going to go down before any blue spells can be played, which means that this tower is still very threatened. Could see Time of Triumph or Fighting Instinct come out, but the trouble is, I think you just have to let this happen, right? I think you just have to let this happen. He's not letting it happen. He's playing the Time of Triumph, which indicates to me that he really should have played the Time of Triumph on the previous turn. Obviously, that's a bit of results-oriented thinking, and also at this point, it looks like he's very dead. Rebel Decoy is going to swap with the Conscript, and that's going to be 19 damage to this tower, and it should just be it. I don't think there's any way to stop this from happening. I believe that is the game. Yep, Lumi's just playing more stuff. Just feeling like it, you know? May as well slap it all out there, man. You got all this stuff you can do. Look at these beefy boys. And there you go. So that's the game. I thought that was a pretty interesting game. It clearly showed that there are some potential lines of play that could have been made from the challenger that would have altered the outcome of the game to some degree. I think he really should have played the Time of Triumph on the previous turn in mid lane. On the first turn that he had 8 mana. He had 2 Time of Triumph. I'm not really sure why he was saving one of them, right? If his plan was to play one on right lane, I don't really see a reason not to play one on mid lane. So I think that was obviously, now that we saw the end of the game, we know the Ogre Conscript would have died if he did play the Time of Triumph on the previous turn, and that would have actually saved him on that turn. But I think it also would have changed the way that both players would have played, because of the fact that now you have this really beefy Bristleback who's also doing siege damage, which is just damage that happens whenever the damage that happens to the structure whenever the unit with siege is blocked. So I think that Time of Triumph was probably one of the biggest moments of the game. Beyond that, I think the choice to put Red Mist Pillager down in mid lane and effectively only save a handful of life on the tower. Actually, let me go back to that. Was it even life saved on the tower? What turn was it? It was this turn, I think. Wait. Hang on. Yeah. You're looking at the last lane. Come on. Is it this one? I'm trying to remember when it was. No, this is the hang on. No. I'm losing my mind. This is the turn. So here's the Thunder God's Wrath. Let me zoom back a little bit. Yeah, so this is where you played Red Mist Pillager on Lincc. So yeah, that effectively saved 4 life on the tower and fed 1 gold. And I don't really think that does anything, right? I mean, obviously this is the tower that ended up dying second, so health on this tower is theoretically important, but I also think that spending a resource like the Red Mist Pillager in this lane to just save, and also, like, if he was going to do that, now that I'm thinking about it, why would you put it in front of Lycan instead of in front of Pugna? Oh, because the Pugna wouldn't have died, right? Because he has 3 armor and Red Mist only hits for 4. Never mind. Yeah, but even then, like, you're still playing Thunder God's Wrath on the following turn, so if the Red Mist Pillager is coming down to save life, then it should just come down in front of Pugna. I mean, I guess, assuming that you are playing Red Mist Pillager on this turn, maybe you're assuming that you won't have a chance to play Thunder God's Wrath on right lane. But, like, again, that's an example of where you probably shouldn't play anything, just so you guaranteed have initiative, play the Thunder God's Wrath, still kill this unit anyway, and still kill, you know, all the other stuff. So I think that would have been a much better play, that one, and then, of course, playing the Time of Triumph on just Bristleback on the turn after this. I think those were 2 of the key decision points of this game. So, interesting game, though. Definitely shows the power of the red-green cleave deck, where it basically just amasses these really strong board states. And this is the kind of deck where you really, really want to have a card like Annihilation in it. The demo decks, the PAX demo decks, didn't have Annihilation in them, but Annihilation is a 6-mana blue card, and it's condemn all units. Obviously, that's only for the current lane, but having condemn all units, having just a straight board clear, especially in a lane where, I don't know, there's 2 units that are going to have damage immunity. That seems. Oh yeah, hang on, just go to. Look, I'm just trying to look at the, yeah, like, playing an Annihilation on this lane sounds awesome, right? Like, that sounds so good. Obviously, it kills 3 of your own heroes, so theoretically you wouldn't be committing this much, right? That would be the goal, is not to commit this much of the board. Instead, just commit a single blue hero, slap down Annihilation, and call it good. But that would be an example of where Annihilation would be really good. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I might do a few more of these if anybody is actually interested in that. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.